Hey everybody, it's time for this week's market snapshot, our episode of RealTalk, talking about what has happened in the Northern Virginia real estate market in the last 7 days. Hopefully we're going to hit this in under about 7 to 9 minutes. Again, we are looking at, as we go through this process, we're looking at the lead measures of what's been going on so that you can have real-time data and real-time information that you can use when you go out into the marketplace. The market is certainly showing some signs of movement. It is not our typical market. With school starting this week in Fairfax County, we're seeing a very, very quiet market. Let's just get into the numbers so you can see exactly what's going on. All right, so as always, our black line here is our buyer activity, and you can see that we've been staying pretty steady with buyer activity. Again, the school starts on Monday here in Fairfax County, so that does affect what has been going on in this last week because people are getting their last round of travel in and so on. We will see how that affects the market long term, but we usually see it calm down for a week or two, and then the buyer activity will start picking back up. You can see the inventory also has stayed pretty steady. It's been a steady downward trend, but it's been pretty steady. And we've had the same about number or the activity is almost the exact same as it was last year at this time. You can see that they're pretty much in the exact same spot. So what does this mean as far as what it looks like as far as buyer's market versus seller's market? This is our normal market sitting right here. Seller's market is up here, buyer's market is down here, and we're hovering right around that normal market. So it's really, really a fair market, and you're going to see that as we go into the contracts. It's really a fair market for buyers, and it's a fair market for sellers as well, because sellers, if they're presenting properly and priced appropriately, are getting the top market value. Buyers are not getting into too many bidding wars. They're having opportunities to get the properties at market value. So let's look at what the contracts actually looked like. So for the last 7 days, we had 172 contracts. Now notice that is a lot lower. Last week we had about 197. Prior to that week, we were well into the 200s, 220, 230, 270, things like that. So we are certainly seeing a slowdown in activity as we're getting closer to the school year starting. And again, that'll last about 2 weeks. And then we'll get into the fall market, which will start to pick up a little bit. So here in Northern Virginia, we had the contract price. We had 22% of the properties went under contract over asking price. This is up a little bit from last week. Last week it was only 17%. We had 20% went at asking price. So in Northern Virginia, this is the first time we've seen this. In Northern Virginia, 42% of the properties went at or above asking price, but 58% went under contract below asking price. So that's the first time we've seen this cross that 50% mark with below asking price. Does that mean prices are coming down? It doesn't mean values are necessarily coming down. The median sales price for for Fairfax County last month, July versus July of 2025, did drop, I think, about 1%. But again, that's median sales price. These numbers don't mean that the values are coming down. They just mean that the prices are coming to the market, their market value more quickly. Does that mean values won't come down? Nobody has a crystal ball, but we're still seeing that we're sitting in that even market. So we don't necessarily see values coming down, but we're seeing properties that are overpriced are not getting that overpriced sales price like they used to. They're being forced to drop that price or take offers below. Also, the market properties are sitting on the market a little bit longer. You can see that, 67% of the properties went under contract in 22 days or less, but 36% of those were the 8 to 21 day mark. So properties are sitting a little bit longer, and so sellers maybe are just a little bit more open to negotiating a little bit sooner, because only 35% of the properties went under contract 22 days or more, but 58% went under contract below asking price. So it's the first time we've seen that pattern in a week. So let's see what the other contracts look like next week and see if this trend is continuing. But basically, again, what this means for buyers is, hey, if there's no offers on a property, let's put in an offer and let's see if we can negotiate and see if we can get a price that's a little bit below asking. But you've got to know the condition of the property. You've got to know the situation. You've got to be in communication with the seller's agent to see what the motivation is for the seller, if they have any offers, what kind of traffic they're getting. As far as contingencies, sitting pretty consistent, about 60-40 yes for finance contingency, 60-40 yes for appraisal contingency. Inspection contingencies, this is huge for buyers. Almost 80% of the contracts had inspection contingencies built into the contract. So this is the highest number that we've seen. This is fantastic. Again, this is why it's a good time for buyers, because you've got a little bit of room for negotiation and you've got some opportunity to make sure you have your protections in the contract. So that makes it a very, very fair market for buyers. Finance versus cash. Here in Northern Virginia, 24% was cash. That's up. Again, this is irrelevant, but 24% of those offers were cash. 24% also had seller subsidies. That's where the seller contributes to closing costs or repairs or something along those lines. And here's the big number for sellers to be aware of. 97% of the contracts had buyer agent compensation, meaning that the seller was contributing to the buyer agent compensation. And 90% of that you can see here was 2.5% or above. So sellers, especially in a market where it's competitive, especially in a market where buyers are having choices, you do not have to contribute to buyer agent compensation. But if that buyer is putting an offer in on your property and you're not willing to help them cover that expense, and they're not willing to cover it out of pocket, or not able to cover that expense out of pocket, they will go to another property more than likely, because they have choices. So that's the market. Sellers. It's a good time if you need to sell. It's a good time to get on the market. It's going to be harder for you to get that top market value. You've got to come on and present much more professionally. You've got to have a good marketing plan, and you've got to be a little bit patient and be very, very realistic in your sales price. Buyers, this is a fantastic time for you. Again, I've been saying that, but this is an opportunity for you to get a fair contract with a fair price on a property. All right, if you guys have any questions, either from the buy side or the sale side, please let me know. Reach out to Kelly and me at 703-783-2143, and we will see you guys next week on the next snapshot. Have a great week.